Hi everybody, it's Michael Lutzmann. I'm Joint Managing Director of the Opimian Wine Club, and normally Jane Masters does this summary for the Cellar Offering, but she's on vacation. So for 287 for the Loire, Provence, Languedoc-Roussillon, and Corsica, I have enlisted the help of Louise Wilson, Master of Wine, from down here in beautiful Niagara, Ontario, Canada. We're actually at Q Vineyards in Beamsville, and they've kindly let us use their vineyard to make this video because we think it's absolutely gorgeous. It's so beautiful.
Gorgeous out here.
We've got some of the 287 wines set up, and we're just going to walk you through this offering. So we're going to start with Greg and mine, the director's cut on page 5. You'll see that I love mixed cases, and I love kind of the higher end wines of each of these makers. Geoffrey we'll talk about toward the end. I just love this de la Jasse sparkling, and then I've got the high-end Canets that I have been drinking for years and years and years, and when I saw that they were being offered in a mixed case, I jumped at that absolutely. Greg, he just absolutely loves Domaine Jones, so he's got one of Katie's wines here. The Picpoul, he tells me, is one of his favorite white wines of all time, and that comes from our good friends in Languedoc. And then we've got the Cice-le-Brun Rouge from Saint-Cyr, which Saint-Cyr is so well known for its whites, and this Rouge is unusual, and Greg loves it as well. So we'll turn the page, and what you see on page 6 is the future of rosé, and rosés have really made some headway in the world, and Louise is going to talk to us a little bit about what's going on with rosé, Louise.
Wow, rosé remains to be increasing in popularity. People are just loving rosé. I read some statistics recently that the 15 years leading up until 2019, rosé sales in the world have increased by 13%. So at this time, 1 in 10 bottles that are drank in the world is rosé wine.
Wow.
Which I think is wonderful.
That is huge.
So it got me thinking about why is that? Why is rosé so popular? And I think there's a couple reasons. One, I think, is the obvious. It's gorgeous, and it lends itself to beautiful pictures on social media, right?
True.
So I mean, that's a phenomenon for sure. Yes, what a nice color.
Yes,
cheers, Michael. And I think the other thing that's really fascinating about rosé is just the variety of styles that rosé comes in, anywhere from bone dry to sweet to maybe just a little bit sweet, and all sorts of grape varieties, and all around the world. So really there's so much to explore within the rosé category. And rosé really is the best of both worlds, isn't it? You've got a refreshing wine, a nice chilled refreshing wine to be enjoyed like outside on a beautiful warm day, but also rosé, because it's made from black grapes, has a little bit of tannic structure to it, so there's a little bit more to it, and it's wonderful for food and wine pairing. So in this cellar you have a wonderful selection. There's actually 14 different rosés available
by design.
For you to
That's
explore in this Cellar 287. You've got wines from all over France. So there's Syrah and Cinsault from Provence, and I think we're talking a little bit more about Provence shortly. Languedoc-Roussillon, we've got examples of rosé from Grenache, Syrah, and Merlot. You've got Cabernet d'Anjou from the Loire. So a wine with a hint of sweetness. It's absolutely beautiful. I think that's what's in our glass here, actually.
Oui.
And a really interesting rosé from Corsica. So we're going to talk about Corsican wines a little bit later as well.
And do you think that that people are just now discovering the great rosés that have been around all along, or are they just making rosés better?
Both.
Yeah.
We as consumers are just discovering this sort of playground of options, and so many nice selections here to choose from. But then I do think that the winemaking techniques are improving as well. So we have, you know, crisp, clean, aromatic, perfumed fruit, just refreshing, mouth-watering. I think winemaking's come a long way as well. So I think both are reasons for the increase in popularity.
Great, thank you. All right, so here we are on page 8 of C287, and we're going to talk a little bit about Bourdon le Breton. He's from Languedoc-Roussillon. It took me about 10 years to figure out how to say that right. I'm getting there. He's with Domaine de la Jasse, and his parent company is called BLB. And our cover girl, Morgane, is his daughter, and they run this together. It's a family business, which we absolutely love. He was the Founder's Choice Program provider a couple of years ago, and we have this wine here with us now. I wanted a sample of the de la Jasse for Louise so that she could taste Bruno's wines. And if you're not familiar with the Founders Program, you get a case of 6 automatically ordered for you every cellar offering, so 10 times a year, and it's always red with cellarable potential, but also it arrives in drinkable condition. And Louise, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you found when you opened that bottle?
Well, I'll just start by saying thank you for sharing that wine with me. That was such a lovely treat. I opened it up last night, and the perfume and aromas literally jumped out of the bottle before I had even started to pour it. So
Wonderful.
Right from the beginning, I was absolutely blown away. And really, it's a Grenache-based wine, so what I got was really bright strawberry perfumed fruit, and I really think the aromatics are so impressive from this wine, but it follows through on the palate. So very concentrated, very elegant, very thoughtful wine. I could really feel the winemaker's commitment to making this balanced and harmonious wine. I personally thought it was drinking perfectly. So if this is something that you purchased last year and you've still got some in your cellar somehow.
I do.
Yeah,
Yes,
well, you did.
That's right, yes.
In my personal palate, I think it's absolutely perfect now. It doesn't mean that it isn't going to hold and also potentially evolve into something else. But then to me, that's a personal choice. I think I would be drinking it now and over the next year or two. If you like older wines, this certainly has the concentration and balance to develop into something else. And if that's your style, then it's absolutely going to hold for
and those of you who've seen me on video before know that I like old reds, and I let them get old and really enjoy that, but that's not for everyone. So all that to say, with Bruno's wines, they're on page 8 through 11 here, and he's an excellent winemaker. You can't go wrong with any of these. You'll notice that his sparkling is one of my picks at the front, so you really can't go wrong with
that. Sparkling
Bruno's
looks
wine.
really neat. I saw that.
It's delicious.
I'd like to try
in
that.
fact, the reason it's not here is they're all gone.
Yes, I think I'll be getting myself some. That looks
that's
very
right. So
interesting.
I'll be ordering a replenishing case of that one.
Yeah.
So now we're on page 12, which is the Loire Valley from Maison Fouché-Lebrun, and Louise, would you mind just telling us a little bit about the Loire generally?
Okay, so we're in fairly northern France, a cool climate. So we're talking about, cool climate grape varieties. So lots of whites and light reds. The Loire Valley the vineyards are centered around France's longest river, which is the Loire. Absolutely gorgeous place. Certainly on my mind to visit as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's really lovely. Great goat cheese too.
Perfect pairing with our Sancerre and Poulet Fumé when we get there. So the Loire, starting from the Atlantic Ocean, is traveling inwards, and it ends up just south of Paris. So, and I noticed that you have wines here that really take you, in this cellar, you have wines that take you all the way along that journey. So you can travel the Loire, through your glass, through your cellar experience here. And just starting in the west, in the Nantais, you have the Muscadet from Melon de Bourgogne. And this is every time I think of this wine, I just think of oysters. It's just such a perfect, crisp, light wine, expressing minerality, salinity. Like, just imagine, the ideal match for an oyster, and that's what you've got with your Muscadet. And dry, I should say, crisp. And then we're traveling inward here, so we're going from quite ocean-influenced climate towards a more continental climate, so less impact of the Atlantic Ocean as we travel towards Anjou, Saumur, Touraine. And grapes here transition into Chenin Blanc for the whites. And for the reds, we've got Cabernet Franc, and you've got examples of both those grapes in your cellar here, which I think is wonderful. We talked about Vouvray, I think, the other day, and a wonderful expression of Chenin.
Absolutely beautiful.
Vouvray, you know, known for its refreshing acidity, wonderful food wine, and comes in all sorts of expressions, right from bone dry to very sweet to sparkling. So there's a lot to explore within these appellations. And then sort of towards the end of the valley, we end up at Sancerre and Pouilly-Fumé. So two of the stars of the Loire, I would say, worldwide recognized appellations.
And we talked a little bit about the mixed case here, and what was it you were just telling me about that, the mixed case?
Oh, the mixed case with Sancerre and Pouilly-Fumé.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting because you often hear about these two appellations being compared to each other. And sometimes you hear about Pouilly-Fumé having that smoky, flinty character. But in my experience, you can find that smoky, flinty character in Sancerre as well. The appellations are really just a river apart from each other. So very similar soils, very similar climates, the same grape, which is Sauvignon Blanc. So really the differences, I would say, are more between producers in the area. So different winemakers would be making choices. An essential choice is about harvest date. So how long are they going to let those grapes hang on the vine to gain more flavor and complexity. Also, you know, in the winery, things like oak aged, you know, stainless steel, lees aging, all of those choices that the winemaker has to make an imprint on his wines and his style. So I think it's interesting, you know, to compare Sancerre and Pouilly-Fumé within a producer, as you've got the opportunity now here with this mixed case, to see the different expressions within this producer.
Across the river from one
That's
another.
right.
Yeah, that's really, really cool.
Check out the differences.
Yeah, so we'll move along, and just along that way as we leave the Loire, we do have the Anjou with us today, and we're drinking it very nicely.
Oh, wonderful, yeah.
Yes, so cheers again.
Cheers. And this one does have just a hint of sweetness, so if that's your preference for your rosé wines, this is a good one to choose.
Perfect. So let's move on to Provence. That starts on page 18, and we have several smaller producers from Provence with individual offerings, and that's really cool. What can you tell us about Provence generally, about terroir and such?
Okay, so we're talking about the south of France. We're talking about the Mediterranean. So a warm region, lots of sunlight, lots of warmth, nice dry climate, really ideal for grapes. Provence really produces rosé, red and white wine, but really rosé is the signature wine style that we all are familiar with. I think the production of rosé might be 90% for Provence, and so really that's what we've come to know Provence for. And the rosé in Provence tends to be really pale pink, all the way up to salmon color, depending on the producer or the age of the wine. Dry.
And is that both the skin and also the time on the skin, right? Which is,
So only black grapes are used to make rosé wine in Provence, and it's something called direct press, which just means that the skins are in brief contact with the juice. The juice of the grapes is white, and the color comes from the skins, and there's just a brief contact with the skins that gives you this nice pink hue, versus if you left it longer, it would be red wine, right?
Yes.
So along with color, which is a really important part, I think, of enjoying rosé, I drink with my eyes. I'm sure most people do.
Unless you're doing a black glass tasting.
Yes, no, I really find the visual is part of the enjoyable experience.
Question, right?
But also this skin contact gives tannin, and structure to the wines as well, which sets them apart from white wines. So you've got wines that have a little bit of that grip as well, a little bit more full-bodied, and that's coming from the skins as well as that little bit of touch of tannin.
Very cool. Well, when we arrived here this morning, they were actually spraying the vines, and so they sent the guy away because it was extremely noisy, and he's coming back soon, so we're going to keep going. Page 24-25, there's some really interesting things about sustainability. Bruno Le Breton is really big for that. In fact, I think he was one of the originators. And also you'll see that another one of ours is Charlotte Leemstra from Canet. She is going to Antarctica in an attempt to try and save the planet and show how sustainability works. And we've become a major sponsor of Charlotte's trip to Antarctica. So, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but there's a lovely picture of her when she was a bit younger, but she's still only 20.
So sweet.
And she's headed off to on this incredible expedition.
What a wonderful story.
Yeah, we in Opimian are so thrilled to be able to be a sponsor for that initiative. And very recently, Charlotte started making her own wines on the family estate, and you'll see those in the value section. And what we'd like to say is that a portion of every bottle of Fleur de Charlotte that we sell will be going to the Antarctic expedition. So that is so great, and they are so appreciative as well that we've stepped up for Charlotte's. And as you know about the center section, we put it there all the time so you can find it easily. These are top values. They're like a Monday night, Tuesday night wine, easy drinking, inexpensive, often in 12 packs, and there's the full range here of Fleur de Charlotte. I was actually told from the office that I should mention to people, if you have Charlotte's from last year, it was unoaked, and we were told that it needed a little bit of time to mature, whereas this is an oaked version this year that's on offer, and it'll be drinkable upon arrival. So that's an important piece. So we're going to go to page 28, and we're back to Languedoc. And Domaine d'Eau is yet another Canet who has started making wine. So, and he's making it. He's a little higher altitude, right? And that has a lot to do with climate change. Did you have anything you'd like to say about that?
Well, it certainly is a strategy that many winemakers in warm climates are taking, is moving up, right? So the higher you go in altitude, the cooler the temperatures. So it is a way to offset the vineyards warming up from climate change.
Yeah, and I think he's figuring that out on Domaine d'Or. I've tried those wines, ordered some last year. That's when we started offering them, and they're absolutely excellent. You'll notice there's none on the table because they're gone too. So
you gotta act fast around here.
That's right. Well, those of you who see how many videos I do, that I have an occasional glass of wine from time to time.
That's right.
So we're at Chateau Canet on page 30, and this is a picture of Victoria and Floris Leemstra. They actually have quite a footprint here in Canada. They're very well connected to Canada, and they've got a beautiful place in France that Greg has visited. I have not, but I will be soon. And I think our members are really familiar with the Canet line, from the Minervois that is here, as well as going, I would call it, I don't mind saying it's up the ladder to the ones that are in my pick, which are on page 35. That's 2742 is the mixed case that I absolutely adore. It's just fantastic. And I think we talked a little bit about my Cellar Up feature here on page 34. That's something we like to offer to you so that you can get a sense of other wines that may not be in your wheelhouse. I used to only drink heavy reds, and what I discovered through wine education is that you can drink wines for all occasions, and that all styles have a place in your wine palate. And so Cellar Up is there to help you with that, and you can read through the wine pairings that we set up for those. So let's move on to Domaine Jones. It's on page 36. It's also in Languedoc-Roussillon. And the very interesting thing, and this may be the first time this has ever happened, is that Katie is actually our Founder's Choice producer this time, and our Master's Case producer. We talked a little bit about the Founder's Choice when we talked about de la Jasse. And the Master's Case is a case of 3 different wines that come to you, and it includes a tasting with Jane Masters virtually, that when the wines arrive in Canada, and everybody across Canada has the wines, they can actually taste along with Jane, which is really a cool
That's what
thing.
I signed up for.
Yes, that's right. You have, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about this is that you'll see this story about the Gang of 3, and I think it's very interesting that it's Gang of 3, but there are 4 wines. So they said it's like the 3 Musketeers actually is 4 Musketeers. And Katie is a force of nature, I can tell you. She wanders about her vineyard. She's got wild boars all over the place, and she has this Bleu de Chevaux, which she calls Diane. I name my cars. Do you?
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
We just picked one up where we're calling Veronica.
Nice.
So anyway, you can get 3 of the Gang of 3 wines that are 4 wines by subscribing to the Master's Case. That's easy on your dashboard. And then I'll tell you a secret, that if you want all 4, you just need the Master's Case and the Syrah. And then you have all 4 of these Gang of 3.
Okay.
I can't stop saying that. It's so much fun.
Good tip.
That's right. So then we'll keep going to 44, and this is still Katie Jones. And there's a story here. I'm going to let you read it, so I won't go through it completely. But what happened was that Greg was talking to Katie, and he said, I'm going to buy 2 barrels of this orange wine of yours. And it's still on the vine, and it's going to be made into 2 barrels, which is about 600 bottles. So that's only 100 cases of this. And we put it up for pre-sale before the offering opened, and we've already sold more than half of it. It's almost sold out. So if you want some of this orange wine, it'll come to you in late 2022 or early 2023. Opimian used to do futures all the time, where you would buy a future and then your wine would come. And Jane will be trying the wine to make sure it's of top quality before it arrives. She did try the last vintage of this wine, which was the first vintage. And Katie, you'll see in the story, she wishes that she had made more of it. But Jane loved it, and so we are just absolutely thrilled to be offering it to the membership. Her husband, Jean-Marc Astruc, should not go unmentioned. He makes his own wines on the same property, and they're well worth checking out. And last but certainly not least is we go to Corsica, to Domaine Orange de Joffre. And this was actually where Jane Masters got her first wine job on Corsica, and she worked there. And they have got a full offering here, including the pink wine, the rosé, and also they've taken our collector's corner, which are collectible wines by nature, and they're really that particular liqueur is absolutely phenomenal. So that is in Corsica. What can you tell us about Corsica?
Well, it's a French island in the Mediterranean, but it's actually closer to Italy than to France. So there is quite an Italian influence over the winemaking there. There's some interesting grape varieties there. One that is in your offering here is Niluccio, which is another name for San Giovaci. So that might be...
I learn something new every day.
That might be more familiar. So this wine really does make a lot of the reds and rosés from Corsica. Great for structure, nice tannins, nice refreshing acidity, beautiful pale color, red fruits, herbs. So everything, if you think about San Giovaci, then you're right there. So it's an alternative way to enjoy that.
I'm in.
Great variety. I know, it sounds good, hey?
Yeah.
Mouth-watering. And then for whites, there's a Vermintino as well. So Vermintino, a very aromatic grape variety, floral, fruity, refreshing. Really, if you're enjoying aromatic grape varieties like Sauvignon Blanc, for example, this is a great one to try as well. Something different, Vermintino, as well from Corsica.
Great. I think we are at the end, and I hear the tractor coming. So I think we timed this very, very well.
Good job.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Louise, for joining us. Louise Wilson, Master of Wine.
Thank you, Michael, for
And
sharing your wine with me.
Cheers to 287.
Cheers.
Louise is a member, and as she said, she's become a member of the Master's Case.
Right. So
you'll be actually seeing her on those calls as well, because she'll want to hear what Jane has to say about those wines.
can't wait.
Right.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.